Hello everybody and welcome back to another one of those videos where I talk about updates on Dwarf Fortress coming from Toady1 and KitFox. We have the Siege update. This is version 53.01. We've got the patch notes and I've got some footage of a siege. We'll talk about the siege footage after I read the patch notes, and so if you've already read the patch notes, feel free to just skip to here. Alright, let's read some patch notes. So in the notes for version 53.01, it is stated, this is the siege update. Invaders should cause some more trouble now. Aside from a few minor things mentioned below, you don't have to create a new fort or world for this update. We've done about half of the possible changes that we were contemplating on the roadmap, and we will certainly be doing some more, especially the magical stuff, as work continues. This update is a nice self-contained improvement for the regular siege behavior, so we're posting it without further delay. Thank you, KitFox and Bay12. The patch notes themselves are broken up into three parts. We've got attack, defense, alongside of general updates. So first up, invaders can now build stairs and construct floors. I haven't encountered this yet, and you'll see that in my footage that I have later in the video. But as I understand it, they will be able to bring bricks with them and construct little structures to get over your walls. I'm very curious to see this in action, and I'm trying to make sure that my current fort that I'm running on stream encounters it sooner than later, so tune in if you see me live. Maybe we'll see some sieges. Invaders can bring battering rams to bash through doors and buildings. Again, not something I've encountered, but very excited to see. We have seen these in the various trailers that they've released. Invaders can dig through natural walls, including trolls, with great picks in new worlds. Just as a side note, I've been told that great picks in adventure mode are ridiculous. It's like the equivalent of having a gravity hammer from Halo. Invaders can be led by historical military-related position holders. This would be like your kings, your queens, your demonic overlords, your people who run different factions, and that's a very exciting thing that I can't wait to encounter myself. Now this is something that I have encountered, but I'll talk a little bit more about it later on, which is invaders track where deaths and trap incidents have occurred and eventually plan to avoid them. This is a very interesting thing that requires more testing to see how effective it actually is, but currently from what I've seen seems very promising. Invaders' army composition is more varied, and invaders have different behavior roles. Invaders can be more skilled and have better equipment. Invaders can free caged companions, so if they get caught in a cage, they can be freed from the cage trap. Goblins use more of the underground creatures in new worlds. So if you generate a new world, you will see more variety of goblin mounts and things that accompany them with their armies. Although I will say an asterisk, there was definitely some people in my comments section today who encountered problems due to like missing assets and things disappearing in old worlds, but hopefully that gets sorted out sooner than later. It could also be mod related. It's also kind of hard to tell. Flying invaders and invaders with flying mounts, behavior has been improved, whatever that means. I presume that means they can actually fly now instead of just flapping along the ground like a normal ground mount, but in the air. Invaders enter over a wider edge width, which is a really good thing, because previously if they all entered via one tile and it was on a very steep cliff, this could cause problems and some very strange oddities with like them coming single file into the map. Hopefully that solves that issue. And lastly, difficulty settings now allow you to change invader behavior and add restrictions. This is a very important one for those of you concerned about the sieges being too difficult. Just simply turn off the behaviors you don't want to see. And with that, we move on to the defense section of the siege update. Firstly, we have the bolt thrower, which is a new siege engine. They fire regular bolts, which can be freely rotated in any direction if an operator can stand behind it. I'll talk a little bit more about siege operators later in the video, but simply put, these are really cool. They're pretty cool. They're made out of a bin, a chain, a mechanism, and a specific part that's made for them at the siege workshop. Next to the list, catapults and ballista siege engines are placed with a fixed firing arcs, but can target the full arc rather than firing only in cardinal directions, and they can fire vertically somewhat, meaning you can shoot them at a slight angle. I find that catapults are extremely effective now. They kind of cause the boulders to explode when they hit the ground, which is the next thing we see here, which is boulders thrown by catapults explode on impact, ejecting sharp rock shards. They are the little sharp rocks that you make in adventure mode by banging two rocks together to make a knife. And they seem to be quite effective, even though enemies can still dodge them pretty effectively. When they collide with the ground, just the shrapnel that they fire out seems kind of crazy. Really makes me want to do some testing with obsidian due to its extra sharpness. Reinforced walls can also now be constructed. Reinforced walls are when you take 2 bricks plus a metal brick to build each wall tile. They can also then be fortified into fortifications. They're harder to break down. I haven't done much testing with them, but so far, at the very least, I think they look really cool. Materials of constructions and buildings matter more for a damage amount, so if you're using like harder stone to defend your fortress with, that will be harder to break down than using a lighter stone. Or alternatively, if you make your walls out of iron instead of like gold, as an example. Iron is going to be more harder to break down, whereas gold is very, soft. There's now a siege operator default work detail in new forts. This is a really nice little quality of life feature, so you don't have to make a work detail for it, and it also helps specify who does what. They made fortress patrollers more careful to hit all of the nodes when covering their routes exactly, which is just handy for you using patrols, and war dogs should stay with their masters when their masters have squad orders. I can confirm that war animals tend to stick to their masters a lot closer. There's a small note that Danger Room now plays in the Lively Taverns, so when they're all singing, just like Drinkin' Industry and Sisters of War, you'll hear that song playing in rotation occasionally. And now with that, we move on to general updates. Now this one is really funny, because they claim that they made carrying of wounded soldiers more reliable. That appears to be bugged in the version at the moment, where they just kind of get stuck in place and then never move again. I've been having to use DF hack to stop them from starving to death. There is a non-zero chance that by the time this video goes up, this bug will have been fixed, because the developers are already aware of it, but we'll see. Hopefully a patch comes out to fix this sooner than later. They fixed some strange occurrences when making non-square worlds. Archery training is now more reliable. They fixed an issue with some cavern critters failing to enter the map. They fixed an issue causing wilderness populations to slowly drain. They fixed necromancer experiments. I don't know what was broken about them, but apparently there was something broken with them. Apparently there was a typo in world generation settlement placement. I wonder how long that's been there. And major optimization for pond filling. I don't know what that means or what the issue was, but cool. And some general optimization for memory, safety, and cleanup. And they fixed some plural names. I've noticed a lot more plurals written in places, so that's definitely making an appearance. In other news, enjoy this Gorlak butt. Let's talk about the footage that I found. First things first, I wanted to talk about siege engines that the player now has. We now have access to these bolt throwers. They operate very similarly to the way the siege engines do, except there's now this nifty little series of options when building any of the siege engines. They all do this. You can point them in any of the 8 cardinal directions. Once placed, the bolt throwers seem to be able to spin in 360 degrees, but I've at the very least seen them spin 180 degrees in this little setup that I have. The catapults and the ballista I don't think can, but can shoot in a cone shape within the area that you place them. The first thing that was a massive concern for me with this update is whether or not the siege operators are going to be able to successfully load the siege engines during sieges. Do not try to take a shot every time I say the word siege in this video. And I can confirm that the dwarves are so dedicated to the cause of reloading their siege engines that they will run themselves into danger to do so. So this is no longer a concern. In fact, it may even be an overcompensation. However, it is very effective, and the dwarves absolutely do make sure that they get their things reloaded. Trauma be damned. In fact, I'll show the little bit of footage of this dwarf trying to reload one of the bolt throwers and running directly past a zombie that's actively attacking him to do so. The next thing that I'll say is I didn't have the opportunity to test out the ballista as seen in the trailer. However, I did get the opportunity to test out the catapults, and I have to say that they're extraordinarily effective against the zombies. Just the shrapnel shards that they sent out caused a wave of them to die every single time one landed. I will say that using these siege engines against enemy sieges is extraordinarily traumatizing on your poor dwarves, and they are not a huge fan of it. But it is extremely satisfying to just watch the stream of bolts come flying out of the bolt throwers. The bolt throwers also have an extremely nifty little feature, which actually shows how many bolts that are nearby that are available for them to load. It also tells you how many are assigned to squads and assigned to hunters. I kind of wish that if I had one thing that I could genuinely request for this update would be another tab alongside of maybe the tasks screen or standing orders in the work orders screen, allowing me to enable and disable the firing status of the ballista, the catapults, and the bolt throwers. Because currently it's kind of a pain after a siege to have to go through to every single one of these individual different weapon emplacements to turn them off. Aside from that, everything seems to work as you would expect. The dwarves seem to do a pretty good job getting everything reloaded, safety be damned, and the new weapons seem quite effective. I'm very much curious to mess around with it more and see some more of the advanced sieges, because this is the only siege that I encountered and it was just some zombies. Now, I wanted to talk a little bit about the zombie behaviors as well. it states that they have more varied equipment and more different behaviors. They absolutely do. Instead of just charging straight into the fortress single file like the zombies would historically, they kind of clumped up and hung around outside. Now, they didn't have any ability to dig because they didn't have pickaxes, but when I did open up the entrance to the fortress to allow them to siege me, they did wander in and tried to hug a wall to avoid my incoming fire from my Marks dwarves. They then actually retreated at one point when the intelligent undead was killed and regrouped outside. Once they regrouped and built up a little posse once more, they attacked me again. And then something that I've never seen the undead do, the remaining retreated. They were all injured and they actually left the map. So I've never seen the undead do that, first off. Second, watching them group up the way they did and move with intention towards places where they would have some theorized more safety than they would otherwise was actually really fascinating to see. Again, I can't wait to see some bigger sieges and actually dig into these mechanics further. All in all, what I have to say is between the changes to ranged dwarves a couple months ago and this update, I think the game is possibly in one of the most exciting places it's been in a very long time when it comes to raw combat. There's still some bugs in the current version, but I'm sure those will get patched within the next couple of days, ready for most of you to take some time and play over the weekend. And honestly, I'm just curious as to what you guys think of this update. I personally am ecstatic about this update and can't wait to mess with it, but that's possibly because I'm biased, because I play this game for a living. So having new things added to the game gets me excited regardless. What are you most excited for in this update, and have you messed around with it? Have you run into any issues? I know that there's bugs involving the wounded dwarves, but aside from the current problems, what's your take on this patch? I'd love to know. Let me know down in the comments section. If you haven't seen it yet, I've made a video reading all of Boat Murdered. If you want to watch a man on the internet read all of Boat Murdered, it's like 3.5 hours long. That'll be your bedtime stories for the next week and a half. Trust me, it's a doozy. Aside from that, thank you very much for watching this video. I hope to see you in the streams sometime or in the next video that I make. Thanks for watching.